Mr. H. quietly strolled down the lonely sidewalk, the morning breeze whispering by. He was as calm and collected as ever, only requiring a good trim. Everything else was in order. Shine shoes, iron slacks, his finest suit, and his cobra walking stick. Mr. H. held the door open for a young woman leaving, then entered the small barber shop. He had never been serviced here, feeling their prices were a touch too high. The middle-aged woman by the barber chair eyed him, noticing his fine clothes. "Good day to you, madam." Mr. H. greeted her with a kind smile. "Morning," she said. "What can I do for you?" Mr. H. slowly looked around at the various hair-cutting tools laid out on a small counter behind the woman. Running his hand through his thin gray scalp, he replied, "I could use a fair trim, especially around the ears. My hair keeps tickling them. It's such a bother." "All right, well, we can trim all you'd like." The woman pulled an apron off the barber chair. "Have a seat, sir." "Thank you." Resting his walking stick against the counter, Mr. H. sat down. His pale blue eyes glanced up at a clock on the wall before him. "Tick-tock, tick-tock," he whispered to himself, almost mechanically, as the woman shielded his clothes with the apron and fastened the collar. "Please be gentle. I don't need much removed. It's hard enough for me to keep what hair I have," Mr. H. insisted. "Oh, don't you worry. I'll fix it up just how you want it, Mr. H," the man finished. "Just call me Mr. H, if you will." The woman looked at him strangely as he rested his head back, closing his eyes. She picked up some clippers and began to carefully cut away at his hair. "You're looking pretty sharp. Going to a party?" she asked. His lips curled into a small smile. "Something like that." The woman eyed the walking stick. The snakehead gleamed in the overhead lights, the red eyes sparkling like diamonds. "Nice cane. Carry it often?" "Always. 'Twas a gift from an old friend. The cobra head is made from pewter. I try to keep it shine. Pewter has become outdated, but I'm old-fashioned. I prefer things from the old ages. Things just aren't made with the same quality anymore. It's all about cutting corners and saving money." "I feel the same way. Everything is so cheap these days," the woman agreed as she trimmed off ends of Mr. H's scalp. "I like the way you think, Mrs. Barrow." "Ah, so you found someone. Good for you, Mrs. Barrow." "My husband passed away a few years ago. He was a good man." "I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sure he was." "Death is a very natural part of life, Mrs. Barrow." "That it is." "Tell me, Mrs. Barrow, have you ever seen a human being die right in front of your very eyes?" She hesitated for a moment, then answered, "No, I can't say I have." Mr. H's smile widened. "It's a thing of beauty, miss. When you see the life fade from a person's eyes, their body grow completely still. A sense of peace and calm sweeps over their form. It's finally over for them. No more suffering." The woman was silent as she continued cutting his hair. "Of course, not everyone has the power to witness this with casual composure. Death is either a thing of comfort or your master." Mr. H. fiddled with his fingers as he eyed the hands of the clock. "I can tell death does not comfort you, Mrs. Barrow. Either way, there is no denying its unique beauty, something that is absolute, untouchable." "Can we please talk about something else?" the woman asked, clearly uncomfortable. "I think you need to hear this. Tell me, did you dance like a puppet when death tugged at your strings, or did you simply try to hide from it when it took your husband?" The woman was taken aback. "How dare you?" Mr. H. rotated his chair to face her. "It's a simple question." He eyed the metal scissors and razors on the counter. If you wished, you could kill me at this very moment." He leaned his head far back, exposing his throat. "Such a pity. The jugular veins are so vital, yet they have no defense to protect them." "Get out of here. Just go." Mr. H returned his head to its upright position. "You say you won't." The man grabbed his walking stick and ever so slightly removed the cobra head, revealing a hidden blade attached to the underside. "Perhaps this will change your mind." The woman leapt back in terror, grabbing the metal scissors and keeping her distance. Mr. H only smiled and put away his weapon. "Relax, I have no reason to harm you. Come now, I'd like if you would finish cutting my hair, please." "To the devil with your hair!" "Please, Mrs. Barrow, this is very important. I promise I shall not set foot near this store again if you just do this one thing for me." He swiveled his chair about to look in the mirror. "Ah, it's almost done. It won't take but another minute. Would you kindly—" The woman did nothing for a few moments, then slowly approached him. "Just keep your hands to yourself," she muttered, trying to hurry with his hair. "Thank you. I greatly appreciate this." She only continued quietly as a swarm of police cars invaded the small parking lot. "It seems you've finished just in time." Mr. H admired his newly cut hair as policemen rushed out of their cars. "I must say it's been a pleasure meeting you, Mrs. Barrow." Mr. H left some dollar bills on the counter by her as the officers stormed inside the barber shop, immediately seizing Mr. H and forcing him on the ground. As they handcuffed him and seized his walking stick, one of the officers checked on Mrs. Barrow. Mr. H only smiled as they took him away. "Thank you again, Mrs. Barrow. Remember to not cower in fear from death, but embrace it." The woman only watched as they hurried him out of the store. It was soon revealed to the woman that Mr. H was a mere alias. The gentleman was actually a wanted serial killer. He had committed a few extra murders before heading to the barber shop, leaving a few clues behind. He felt he had grown too old for the art and decided to retire. He left behind a letter addressing where he would be at 12:30, precisely the time he arrived at the barber shop.